The Word of Truth with Pastor Brad Brandon.
So we have this whole issue of daycare unionization here in the state of Minnesota. We're in the throes of it right now. Governor Dayton issued an executive order authorizing Minnesota Bureau of Medicine Services, or Mediation Services, to oversee the union election among licensed, registered, subsidized family child care providers. So this is not an executive order that forces everybody to become unionized. However, it is an executive order that allows for the vote. Now, in Minnesota, I believe that there are some 11,000 daycare providers, but not all of these daycare providers are going to get the opportunity to vote. I think it boils down to about 4,000 of them, because the only ones who get to vote are the ones who are receiving the subsidies from the state of Minnesota. Now, we've invited Hollee Saville to join us here on the program. She's a daycare provider in the state of Minnesota who strongly is against the unionization of daycare. Hollee, welcome to the Word of Truth radio program.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, explain the whole system, where we're at in this process, and where things are headed with the unionization of daycare in the state of Minnesota.
Actually, I really hope that they're heading in the direction of going nowhere,
Okay.
Quite honestly. Right now, we've filed a lawsuit
I saw that.
For an injunction and a temporary restraining order to stop Governor Dayton and the Bureau of Mediation Services from conducting this illegal and unethical and completely unfair unionization vote that was ordered by the governor. The governor does not have the constitutional authority to do this, as we are not public employees, and the PERLA Act specifically says that we are not considered public employees and should not be considered for this. And it's an overstepping of his authority, and it's really unfortunate that we're facing this. We shouldn't even be considered. We are independent, self-employed child care providers. And the problem with this vote is that the ballots are sent to only 4,300, approximately 4,300 out of these 11,300 providers. And out of those, the outcome is going to be decided by a majority of ballots cast. So if only 2,000 people vote and 1,001 people vote for unionization, every single provider who receives Child Care Assistance Program subsidies, that's what CCAP stands for, all of those providers will be unionized. Governor Dayton's executive order specifically says they will be a collective bargaining unit. That means that they can choose to pay membership dues, but we feel that providers are going to have to be forced to pay fair share fees, as they have in the other 15 states that have child care unions. And the unions are not being honest with providers about that. And a lot of fundamental questions are not being answered, or providers are being misled. A lot of providers who support this truly believe that they're going to be getting health care, and that's not the reality of what's happened in other states. And we're just trying to educate providers about this, to get the facts out about what's happened in other states, tell providers that they need to vote, that all providers who receive CCAP will be unionized if the ballot question passes. And union membership is not is voluntary, but union representation is most certainly not voluntary. The changes that the unions may make to the Child Care Assistance Program, for example, would affect all CCAP providers. But any changes they make to licensing regulations, such as our ratios, training requirements, quality standards, and whatnot.
So there's regulatory issues. There's regulatory issues in this also.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's not representative, and so we feel that we have the right to a vote, and we're not giving equal protection, and this is not a separation of powers, and the legislative branch is a branch that should be deciding if the law needs to be changed to allow child care providers to unionize, and right now the Constitution, as it's written, does not allow this to happen, and it's just really unfortunate that we're having to inform providers about this. We're even having to be considered for this. And, it's kind of funny. It creates a conflict of interest, because those AFSCME and SEIU, the two unions that are trying to unionize family child care providers, they represent our licensing workers, depending on the county.
Okay.
So I don't understand how they can be representing providers for supposed grievances with licensing regulations when they're also representing the licensors. It just seems kind of silly. We have a voice at the table. We've gotten this far. We've, had media involved and our legislators and other providers. We've done all of this without the help of the union. So we're here at the table. We're able to speak, and we don't need a union to speak for us.
Well, okay, let's go back and start this from square one, because I want all of our listeners to understand exactly where you are coming from. When I say you, I mean daycare providers. I think a lot of people don't understand the way the daycare system works. Now, you are essentially a small business owner, correct?
Absolutely. I am a small business owner, 100%, yes.
And why, and this is the question that comes to mind, why are small businesses taking this CCAP money, the Child Care Assistance Program? What compels anybody as a small business to take money and subsidies from the government?
Well, the CCAP program is a benefit for families, and that's not being made clear by those who are supporting unionization.
Okay.
The CCAP program is it's kind of like a welfare program for families and children who cannot afford child care. The government gives them, or taxpayers give them money to pay a certain amount. Like each city or each area has a set reimbursement rate. So let's say my rate is $150 a week, and the reimbursement rate in my area might be $135 a week. A family comes to me and says, I interview them and I say, yeah, this will be great. And they say, well, I have CCAP funds, and, it's they give me $135 to cover it. And I say, okay, it is my choice as a small business owner to say, okay, well, my rate is $150 a week. I don't give discounted quality care. So, I don't care how you pay me, but, if you have $135, you can pay that extra $15 difference as a copay. And a lot of providers choose to do that. It seems that a lot of people who are complaining and saying that they're not making enough money are people who are not charging the difference. And that is your right as a business owner, and that's something you should do, because, yes, we want to help families, and just because a family isn't on CCAP doesn't mean that they're not worth helping either. But we need to make ends meet. I mean, this is certainly not a wealth-inducing business.
Right.
We're not making a lot of money here. I need to make that clear. Yes, Minnesota has a high child care rate, but that is a rate that those surveys are for child care centers.
No, nobody gets into this because it's a lucrative business. We understand that. Now, does taking the subsidized money, the CCAP money, does that immediately qualify you then to get into this vote and cast a vote whether you're unionized or not?
No, unfortunately, it does not. The people who are registered on the program and received a CCAP payment within the year preceding September 30th, 2011. So basically from September 30th, 2010 to September 30th, 2011, those providers will be allowed to vote. So it means that if you took a child on CCAP after September 30th, 2011, even though you're taking kids, you will not get the opportunity to vote. So it's a really arbitrary vote here. I mean, it seems like they're kind of making up the rules as they go along, and it's really unfortunate. I have providers calling me all day long asking, will I be able to vote? Because I have kids on assistance, or I haven't had kids on assistance in the past year, but I normally do. And what if someone chooses to have a kid on assistance later? This will directly affect them. They are unionized, and if the vote passes, all CCAP providers will. And as Jennifer Munt, she's the AFSCME spokesperson, she specifically said that they hope to unionize all 11,300 of us. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made.
Absolutely.
Every year on this. And all politics aside, because I've said before that the partisan rhetoric that's going back and forth is really disappointing, because I feel like we're talking to little kids here and saying, okay, you guys, you be quiet over here, stop fighting, play nice. And this is all about child care providers and the kids and families for whom they care. We're losing sight of that fact that, hey, who's next? I mean, homeschoolers, people who do photography from their homes, doctors, independent construction workers. I mean, people who sell Tastefully Simple and Mary Kay from their homes. All those people are in jeopardy of being unionized because we are small business owners just like them. We pay those self-employment taxes, and I'm thinking I might send my self-employment bill to the governor.
There you go. Let me ask you this: you have essentially about 11,000 daycare providers in the state of Minnesota, correct?
Yes.
How many of those are going to get to vote in this then?
Just those 4,287.
Okay, so you have the 4,287 that are going to get to cast the vote on this, and the rest of them, they don't get any vote, they don't get any say, they're out.
Nope, they're out. They have to, sit on the sidelines. And fortunately, we have providers who are just moved by this and motivated and are empowered and are calling other providers and telling them the facts because they want the truth to get out there, and they know that if people knew the truth, that they would be voting no.
Okay.
These ballots get mailed out December 6th, and they will be due by December 21st. So we're telling people to read the ballot question incredibly thoroughly because we don't know how it's going to be worded, and to mail it from the post office just to be safe. And we also have a rally coming up this Saturday at the Capitol at noon, this Saturday, December 3rd. And everyone who's opposed to unionizing family child care should be there because this affects everyone. We're very concerned that child care costs will rise because in Illinois in 2006, the first year of their union child care contract, family child care rates rose by 35% in the first year. Well, that's insane.
And that's par for the course when it comes to unionizing anything. The costs go up. Let me ask you this. So you have these the remainder of the 4,287 who are going to get to vote. You have the remainder of that. Are these then all people, just so that I understand this correctly, these are all people who did not receive government money through CCAP from September 2010 till September 2011?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that I understood. That's the stipulation. If you've taken CCAP money within that time frame, you're eligible. But if you didn't, then you're out.
Yes, apparently that's the rule today. I mean, I don't know what it'll change to tomorrow, quite honestly.
Well, Hollee, let me ask you this question. Where did they come up with that? Where did they come up with the idea that time frame is the time frame that we're going to include and exclude people?
We have absolutely no idea. There's a lot of speculation, and I can only assume that. Actually, I don't even want to assume because I wouldn't be thinking happy thoughts. So it's really arbitrary and it's just really unfair. You can't call something American and democratic and fair when you're not including everyone who will be affected by this, and we all will be affected by this. I mean, all providers are affected in the other 15 states that are unionized, and so I don't see why this would be any different.
Now, Hollee, would you be okay if all 11,000 daycare providers got to vote?
I'd be a little happier because everyone would have a voice, and that's what we should be allowed. But technically, constitutionally, ethically, we shouldn't even be considered for this.
No, I agree.
If 11,299 providers vote for unionization and one provider doesn't, that one provider shouldn't be forced to unionize. And that's the problem. It's, your freedoms, your rights are being trumped on by, well, this wouldn't even be a majority in this case, but, one person's rights should not be trumped on by the majority.
No, we have a we have a representative form of government for a reason. Our founding fathers said that a democracy is just two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for dinner. So democracy doesn't work in its truest sense of the form. You need a representative-style government. You're absolutely right. I agree with you. Now, let's talk about this. If this vote passes, because I want to make sure all of our listeners understand exactly what's going on here. This vote passes. Let's say it does. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, that doesn't immediately mean that all 11,000 daycare providers are going to be forced to unionize, does it?
Again, speculation here. It likely does not right away, but it doesn't. If they think that they have the authority to conduct a vote of only a third of us, what's to stop them from conducting a vote of all of us? And I don't even know if they make it a vote. In other states, they haven't. Very few states have been given the vote. It's most of the time it's just been by the governor's stroke of a pen. He said, "Okay, you're all unionized now," or "All CCAP providers are now unionized," and there wasn't even a vote. And so those people are now paying fair share fees, even if they choose not to join the union.
And Governor Dayton, and you're very right in what you're saying, because Governor Dayton has come out and said, the people of Minnesota should be thankful, because in other states it's been an executive order to unionize. I'm at least allowing the people to vote. And so he's kind of set himself up as the benevolent dictator in the state of Minnesota.
Oh yeah, he's the hero from, he's very good. He's a good politician, and I wasn't like against Governor Dayton before, but I mean, you announce you're going for re-election, and then you do this vote. That, I haven't met people who can wrap their heads around this, because it's where is this coming from? Why are you guys being considered? I mean, people should be afraid, because this is an overstep of executive branch authority, and the fact that he can do an executive order to sign this, what's to stop him from doing an executive order to do a vote? Because, people think purple palm trees should be at every elementary school. I mean, just because someone has an idea does not mean that it needs to be voted on.
Well, and I think you're right. Anytime that you give government an inch, they take a mile. So certainly this is a push to unionize the entire daycare providing industry in the state of Minnesota. I wouldn't doubt that for one moment. But even if it's not, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it's not. You make a valid point when you say, look at all the regulations that are in an increase. Look at all the costs that are going to increase to the people who aren't unionized. I mean, this unionization of a part of the daycare providers in the state of Minnesota affects every other daycare provider out there.
No, absolutely. And we already have organizations who work for us. Probably many people don't realize this unless they're a provider, that we have numerous city and county and state associations that work for us, who lobby for us, in which membership is voluntary. I mean, like $35 a year gets you lots of free trainings and lobbying and discounts on life insurance and on school supplies and that kind of thing. And then networking and working with other providers, because really that's what we need. We need to be working together and banding together. And unfortunately, this unionization issue has kind of divided us. Certainly not in half, because a strong majority of providers are very much against this.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that even with this vote, if it does happen, which I hope it does not, but if it does, I think we will win, because I think the truth is getting out there and people are realizing that these are, false promises and that they're not going to come true.
Hollee, let me ask you this. As a daycare provider yourself, why would a union is there to protect the people who are behind them, to represent them. Who in the world would you need to be protected against? Who do you need to be represented to? I mean, is this union proposing that they're going to protect you against the government, or what are they there for? What are they proposing for?
Well, I believe that they want to be able to negotiate with the Department of Human Services, which takes care of our licensing. And so they have said that they want to work on quality requirements. I mean, it could be leading into a public preschool program a lot of people are concerned about. I mean, I do a preschool program with my kids, and I far exceed the standards that are laid out. But that is someone's prerogative if they want to run their business more like a true family.
I agree.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I wasn't in a home preschool. I wasn't in a formal preschool, and I did just fine in life.
Well, you're right. And let me point out also that unions typically, I would say in 99% of the cases, they favor big government. So you're telling me that this union is going to protect you, who's pro-big government, is going to protect you from big government? Give me a break. That doesn't work. I mean, that's why they were looking at getting rid of collective bargaining in the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that, we would be having to create a separate position, I'm certain, in the Department of Human Services to deal with this. But, our regulations are not that burdensome, and I think that needs to be cleared, too. That,
okay, fair enough.
They're there to protect families and children. I mean, I think I'm in favor of small government, so I don't think that we need tons of regulations. But unfortunately, there are some not so smart people out there who do things to endanger the lives of children. Right. I'm not saying providers; there's parents who do it too. And so but most of these regulations are like things that are already in the building code, or having the requirement for space is not that big, or the requirement for activities is not that large. So our regulations, the system actually works for licensing if individuals working within the licensing system follow the regulations as they're intended. And sometimes I've heard from people around the state that individual licensing workers, don't do that. And that's unfortunate. But that happens in every industry. You're going to have so-called bad apples.
Well, Holly, and I'll tell you something. The libertarian in me comes out and says, a lot of this is buyer beware. If you should really check out the daycare provider to make sure that they are appropriately taking care of your children. And I would say that would eliminate a lot of government regulation as well. Holly, thanks for coming on the program today and giving us a lot of great information about this.
Oh, thank you very much. If you want more information, childcarefreedom.com is a wonderful website about this.
Sounds fantastic. We'll plug it on the website, childcarefreedom.com. Holly, thanks a lot for coming on and keep us updated. All right. Hollee Saville on the Word of Truth radio program. She is against the unionization of daycare. She's a daycare provider herself, by the way, and she did a fantastic job at getting us a lot of great information. We'll be back in a few moments. Stay tuned.
This is the Word of Truth. The Word of Truth.